Welcome back to the Bright Light Wellness YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Today, I want to talk all about cortisol. We tend to hear cortisol and we think that it's bad, right? We tend to do this. We're like, oh man, our cortisol dysregulated. We have too much cortisol, right? It's bad. It's not good for us. But cortisol's not necessarily bad. Actually, cortisol is a hormone. And of course, when it gets dysregulated, that's dysfunctional, right? Or when we have too much of it or we have too little of it, yes, this is dysfunctional. Everything needs to be in balance in the body. But cortisol is not necessarily bad. It is a necessary and good hormone in our body, but we just need it to be activated at the right time and unactivated, at different times. So it can be negative when it's released at the wrong time, released in excess, or we have too little of it. This can be a negative impact on our cortisol. So I want to talk about, cortisol and how we can and give you some tips on how you can better regulate your cortisol patterns. So now cortisol and melatonin are two master hormones, okay? They're actually opposing hormones. I've just done a video on mighty melatonin, so you could take a look about that and how important it is. But on the other side of melatonin is cortisol. They run in a seesaw. So when melatonin is high, cortisol should be low. And when cortisol is high, melatonin should be low. So today we're going to talk about how we help regulate our cortisol patterns, okay? And of course, when you have dysregulated cortisol patterns, it leads to a lot of hormonal dysfunction. It can lead to low libido. It can lead to urinary urgency and frequency. It can lead to irritability and PMS symptoms and just mood imbalances and just a lot of kind of unpleasant, unfun symptoms. A lot of weight gain. Cortisol can lead to high cortisol levels or dysregulated cortisol can have weight gain, especially in the belly and the face. So lots of unpleasant symptoms dysregulated cortisol patterns can lead to. And of course, it could, depending on how it goes, it could be chronic fatigue, or it could also be things like, more kind of hyperactive system, right? So a lot of energy, and then you have dysregulated cortisol can also lead to like insomnia, where you can't sleep at night and you have racing thoughts. So dysregulated cortisol can do a lot in the body, and it can even really be impacted into like histamine intolerance and, any kind of hormonal dysregulation. So anything that's going to be related to hormonal dysregulation, like PCOS or, cysts or hormonal acne or, anything with do painful periods or loss of your period. Actually, when cortisol becomes too tanked, you could lose your period. When all your other hormones become too tanked, you could lose your period. That actually happened to me. I'll share that probably at some point. But anyway, in this video, but let's just talk about how you actually make hormones, because this is actually really important. So how does your body make hormones? In order for your body to make hormones, we need a few things. We need sunlight to make hormones. We also need to have enough cholesterol, okay? Then we also need active T3 thyroid hormone, and then we also need vitamin A. You need these four cofactors for your body to make, or these four things for your body to actually make hormones or synthesize hormones. And when you have all those four things, your cholesterol, the light frequencies that enter your eye, the T3 hormone, and the vitamin A, your body can make hormones. And where your body does this is when it gets certain light signals into its eye, and these light signals send a message into the suprachiasmatic nucleus, into the thymus gland, the hypothalamus, excuse me, and it'll send messages through the body and through our communication network of what to do and when to do it. And this includes the release of certain hormones. So now you have all those cofactors, right? Those hormones can then also make they make pregnenolone, right? The master hormone, okay, that your body's going to make is called pregnenolone. This is a hormone actually made in the mitochondria. And now the mitochondria can take that pregnenolone and it can go to two different pathways. The first pathway, that pregnenolone will be activated when you have all those cofactors, right? Your vitamin A, your T3, your LDL cholesterol, let's be specific here, and your sunlight. The mitochondria will make pregnenolone, take that pregnenolone and turn it into your sex hormone, right? That's the optimal way that our hormones are made in the pathway. The light signals it. And then the pregnenolone makes our other sex hormones. And the sex hormones are your estrogen, your testosterone, your aldosterone, your progesterone, all your other sex hormones. In times of too much stress, right, the body can take that pathway of saying, okay, I'm going to go and make pregnenolone. And instead of making sex hormones, it just makes cortisol. And when your body just makes cortisol, your body is too stressed. Okay, this is called pregnenolone steal syndrome. Your body is too stressed and it will not make the other sex hormones. It will just make cortisol. And this can be due to a lot of things, chronic infections, not enough nutrition, too much fasting, not too little carbohydrates, downregulation of thyroid hormone, like lots of different things can cause this. But when your body is basically too stressed out, it will not make sex hormones and it'll just make cortisol. And that actually happened to me. I was doing, for health reasons, I was doing a lot of chronic fasting, and then I was also doing a carnivore diet. I was really just trying to get my health back on track because I had so many health issues and I was just taking a food first approach. So I was like, okay, I got to fast more. I got to do carnivore diet, right? And what happened is I lost my period completely. I started having chronic water diarrhea and I was losing my hair and I got down to 95 pounds. My body was so stressed out that it could not even think about procreating. It was just trying to survive. Like it was literally in survival mode, right? So if your body is obviously, it wasn't making that pregnenolone was not being converted into sex hormones. It was just be converting into cortisol. And I never felt tired. I felt super high strung actually at that time. I had tons of energy. And that's because my body was just making cortisol and running on chronic cortisol. Now, this is obviously a dysregulated situation. This is not what we want to be happening. We want to have a balance in our body, right? And be making all the hormones. So obviously those things, my body was giving me signals that those things were not a smart idea. It was too stressful to my body. And this is not what my body needed to be healthy, right? So yeah, basically we have to listen to our body's cues, and it's very wise. And we need to learn ways to help balance our cortisol levels and keep them more and support them in a healthy way. And obviously, some people, in my case in particular, too much fasting isn't good for them. And carnivore diet doesn't work because their body needs some carbohydrates to have that more feeling of safety. And that can happen. So anyway, that's just a little bit of my story, but let's talk about how we can regulate our cortisol. And yes, food is important, but food is not the number one way that we actually regulate our cortisol. The way that we regulate our cortisol is actually through light signals through the eye, which is exactly how we regulate our melatonin levels. And if you get your melatonin levels in balance, your cortisol levels are going to be in balance because these work synergistically. Even though they're opposing hormones, right? It's getting those two hormones in a balanced state, and they run on circadian rhythms, okay? And circadian rhythms are dictated. These are very circadian hormones, and they're dictated by the light that enters our eye. So let's just talk about some tips that can help support this. So the first thing to do to help balance your cortisol levels is make sure that the first light that your eyes and skin are exposed to each morning be sunrise light. So you want to avoid screens in the morning, bright artificial blue lights, LEDs. It's very critical at this time of the day, because what happens is blue light is the light frequency that signals cortisol release patterns, specifically blue light. And the fluorescence, the LEDs, these are going to be heavily blue light dominant, okay? That's the main frequency that comes from them, and they are also void of infrared and red light frequencies, okay? So you want to make sure that you avoid artificial light before sunrise, because this is going to spike your cortisol levels super high. And that's not what we want to do. That blue light is actually telling your body that in the morning, that if you're looking at LEDs or screens from your phone or your computer or whatnot, that it's a sunny summer day at 12 o'clock noon. This, of course, is going to dysregulate our circadian biology, right? And it's going to take your cortisol levels and go right through the roof. Okay. And this is going to cause cortisol dysregulation. Now, if we get outside and we put sunlight into our eyes first, right? That sunlight is going to be the correct balance of infrared and blue together. And when you get that sunlight into your eyes, it will help release cortisol in a nice, slow trickle effect. It will not be this super high jump of cortisol. It's this nice, slow trickle effect, which is exactly how our cortisol should be released. And then as you going outside in the light throughout the day, cortisol will increase, right? Cortisol will increase throughout the day as we are outside in sunlight, okay? And it should be the highest in the afternoon when the blue light in the sky is the strongest. So also cortisol should be the highest in our body on a sunny summer day, right? So cortisol will be higher in the summer in the afternoon than in the winter in the afternoon, right? More melatonin in the winter because melatonin is the hormone that we're using more in the winter. So there's this synergistic or this yin and yang with cortisol and melatonin. And also it will go up slowly throughout the day. It will peak and then it should come down. Okay. And then melatonin would come down throughout the day and then peak at night. Okay. So that morning sunlight will tell your body to put away your melatonin and it will activate your cortisol release in a correct, slow, nice trickle. And it will help balance your circadian biology and your cortisol melatonin patterns. Another really great tip to help balance your cortisol is called earthing. And this is where you place your bare feet or hand or skin on the ground. I like to do this at sunrise, sunset. That's when the Earth's magnetism is really the strongest. But doing it throughout the day is just so great. And this is a natural way of help balancing your cortisol levels and keeping them within normal ranges. Cortisol levels can be balanced pretty quickly by earthing, and it's been shown in many studies that if you just get a few minutes of earthing, it can help regulate and naturally help balance cortisol levels. So I would definitely get out there, get your feet on the ground, get your hands in the dirt, touch a tree, hug a tree, go walk at the beach. All those things will help you get earthing in. And I'm very big on earthing from nature instead of earthing products. Okay. The other thing that you want to do, my next tip, is to keep your mornings restorative. Okay. I know this is hard depending on your lifestyle and what's going on in your day, but if you can try to keep your mornings restorative without stress, that would be better. So if you can try like no emails, don't look at your phone, no highly stressful situations. I understand I'm a mom of kids. I get it. Like things can come up, but try to, as much as you can, keep it restorative and non-stressful. I would definitely not recommend any fasted runs. That's going to spike your cortisol, or HIIT training workouts. Sitting outside at sunrise and doing some journaling or meditations or slow sunrise walk. This is what I would recommend, okay, to start your day, because you don't want to do anything that's going to jack up the cortisol in our system and make it have to come out faster than it should, okay? My next tip is to eat a blood sugar balancing breakfast filled with animal proteins and animal fats. The first meal of the day actually sets your blood sugar for the rest of the day. So if you eat a meal that's very satiating with healthy proteins and healthy fats, this will then help set the tone of your blood sugar for the rest of the day and your cortisol levels, because obviously blood sugar and cortisol levels are highly correlated, right? Because that's one of its jobs, right? Cortisol is in control of blood sugar. So you want to make sure that you are eating a breakfast. And it doesn't mean you can't have some seasonal carbs. It really depends on where your body's at. But I prefer the protein and the fat, breakfast. Sometimes eating too many simple sugars, especially in wintertime, but even in summertime, can be just too taxing on the adrenal glands in the morning and can be too stressful. And then they'll pump out too much cortisol, right? It'll be too much cortisol, but you do want to nourish your body with some animal proteins and some animal fats, because you don't want to be stressing your body out by not giving anything. But if you eat something like just oatmeal or like a bowl of cereal or a bagel, this is going to definitely jack up your cortisol levels in the morning as well. So I would not recommend those for breakfast. I would recommend something like steak and eggs. That's usually typically my morning breakfast. Okay. If you are a coffee drinker, I would also recommend doing so after breakfast, okay? Because again, caffeine is going to obviously stimulate our cortisol response, right? And spike it up. So we're just trying to avoid things that are going to spike our cortisol levels in the morning. And the next tip is don't skip breakfast, because this can actually cause the adrenals to release excess cortisol, because the body, food is a second Zeitgeber. It is a way that our body tells time. So we want to give our body the signal, after we see sunrise light, we want to give the body the signal of food as well, because this will also help strengthen the circadian biology and also help strengthen the cortisol response system. So we want to eat in the morning, because if you don't eat in the morning and you're doing like OMAD or fasting through breakfast, what your body does is the adrenals will pump out more cortisol, more cortisol, more cortisol, because if you are stressed, right, cortisol is going to make you feel more stressed, more energized. And when you have a more stress hormones, right, you have more energy to go find food, right? That's what cortisol is going to do. So you might feel more energized without breakfast, but your adrenal glands and your cortisol melatonin patterns are going to suffer, okay? So eat some breakfast, keep the morning restorative, get the sunrise light in your eyes, eat a protein and fat breakfast, don't eat simple sugars, okay? Now, the next one I would say is spend time in nature in the morning. Actually throughout the day, you want to get your earthing in, you want to get a lot of sunlight throughout your day. Nature is the parasympathetic state, and proper light signals from the sun at different times throughout the day are going to help regulate your hormones and your cortisol patterns. If you're outside and getting the light frequencies into your eye, your cortisol patterns will literally match the sun. It will rise in the morning slowly, go up at midday, and come down or wane when the sun goes down. Okay. If you are honoring sunlight and getting sunlight signals into your eyes, the same thing with melatonin. If you are honoring darkness, when the sun sets, right, cortisol will go down, but melatonin will increase and it will stay high throughout the night. And then as morning time comes, melatonin will dip off and cortisol will go back up. If we're honoring the day and night light cycles in a circadian fashion, these hormones come back into balance pretty quickly. Okay. So the next tip is to block artificial light after sunset. So eat an early dinner, and then after sunset, block artificial light. Okay. And the two reasons for this is artificial blue light, right? Just like in the morning, that blue light from the screens or that blue light from your LEDs or your fluorescent light bulbs are going to spike your cortisol again. And we don't want cortisol spiking after sunset. We want to teach our body how to increase its melatonin and get into rest and repair mode, right? So we want to do everything we can to avoid spiking our cortisol after sunset, and blue light from screens, LEDs, fluorescence is going to spike that, okay? So it's very important to block artificial blue light after sunset. You can get a pair of red tone blue blockers or orange tone blue blockers, red or orange for sure after sunset. I have the link in the description. You can check that out for different companies that I'm affiliated with, and there's discount codes as well. So please make sure you're blocking artificial light after sunset. Next, I would say eat an early dinner or don't eat after sunset, because when you eat after sunset, eating is also going to spike blood sugar, okay, and raise your cortisol levels. Every time we look at blue light, cortisol goes up. Every time we look at blue light, blood sugar goes up. Every time we eat, cortisol is probably going to increase. It's less detrimental if you're eating like proteins and fats, but carbohydrates especially, we are not as insulin sensitive at night. Those kinds of foods just don't work as well in our body at that time. So we'll have more difficulty digesting, regulating our blood sugar, our insulin, and our cortisol levels, eating after dark. Okay. So we don't want to be spiking that. And every time we spike cortisol, remember, we're going to suppress melatonin, and then we're not going to get the rest, the repair, and the rejuvenation that we are needing to get while sleeping. Okay. So yeah, I would also add in, keep your nights restorative. Again, try to be off your devices, try to be off, social media, try to do things that are calming, like reading next to a red light bulb, a lamp with a red light bulb, or just taking a warm bath, keeping things more restorative at night and less stressful the hours before bed will actually help regulate your cortisol and melatonin patterns. And lastly, I would say remove all electronic devices from your bedrooms, turn off your Wi-Fi router at night, because Wi-Fi or non-native EMFs, just in general, not even just from Wi-Fi, just non-native EMFs in general, they release a form of light that we do not see. And those light frequencies actually impact our cortisol levels, and they also actually will raise your cortisol big time. Okay, they have a big impact on the hormones. So we want to make sure that we're trying to mitigate that as much as we can. Okay, you can get a Wi-Fi kill switch and turn off your Wi-Fi at night. Keep all your devices out of your room, and just let your body get a break from all of that, because could be the reason why you're waking up in the middle of the night. It could be that, because that signal, those frequencies, our body can read those, and our body will be more stressed and then release more cortisol. Grounding has the opposite effect, right? When you're grounding, you are earthing, right, in nature. That sends the body the frequencies that it's used to, just like sunlight, okay, that are aligned with our physiology, okay? Wi-Fi and non-native EMFs are not. Okay, and yeah, and they will cause your body to release more cortisol. That's what I was going to say. So those are my tips about how to help balance your cortisol. I hope that was helpful and you enjoyed this little topic. It's really, really important to help get these master hormones in balance. So I'm talking cortisol, melatonin, leptin. These are master hormones, and they are upstream to the downstream hormones like estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. So we want to get these once these master hormones come into balance, leptin, melatonin, cortisol, the other hormones will come into balance, because these are in control of these hormones, right? So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope you learned something. I hope you try some of these tips. If you try some of these tips, please let me know how it goes. Let me know in the comments how it goes, what else you want me to talk about. I'll be super excited to support you guys on those things. And yeah, I hope you like this one. Please like, subscribe, let me know what else you want me to talk about. You can send me an email at contact@brightlightwellness. You can, talk to me in the comments, and I will, be happy to share more information. I am currently taking new one-on-one clients to work with. I have room for 2 available one-to-one clients, but I also have personalized healthcare plans if you want to work with me. I also have, and this will all be linked down below, I also have my hormone and metabolic group coaching beginning this in 2 weeks, beginning the first week in May. We're going to start this next cohort. It's 3 months with me and a friend of mine that I run it with. Her name is Miley. So you can check the information on that. It's called the Hormone and Metabolic Reset. Again, 2 one-to-one coaching availabilities I have. I do personalized healthcare plans where I write you a personalized healthcare plan, and I explain all this into detail in a video recording, just like I'm doing now with Google Slides. So you can check that out. I also have my Get Your Light Right ebook. If you need an affordable option, you can learn how to use sunlight as medicine and how to mitigate artificial light in your environment. And then I also have my my seasonally, ancestrally, and nourished seasonally diet plan, basics plan. So you could take a look at that. So I have lots of different options to support you guys. Oh, and I have my Relaunch Your Rhythms course. You can take a look at that. So you can check out all the links below. Check out my website at brightlightwellnesscoach.com. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to supporting your health and follow along on the channel so you can learn more really great tips about how to support your health, your healing through a circadian biology lens. And yeah, looking forward to supporting your health, and let me know what else I can do to support you guys. Have an awesome day. Talk to you soon.